here's what I know. Someone's going to have to start to fight for Nebraska. All right, so I'm here to fight for Nebraska. And finally, the team grows up. It's what people always ask me about year 3. Finally, the team grows up, and they're like, well, I got to go make the play.
It's time to join the Husker Huddle with Nick Handley and Grant Hansen.
Hey, welcome into a short week and a quick turnaround on the Husker Huddle. It is episode number 17 alongside Grant Hansen. I am Nick Handley. We appreciate you checking this out, and a very happy Thanksgiving to you and yours. Nebraska getting ready for the big matchup against Iowa on Friday, coming off of what was just a woodshed beating to Penn State. So the Huskers are going to have to lick their wounds and have that quick turnaround mindset. We'll get into all of that. Coming up on the show, we're going to be talking to Mike Schaefer. And looking forward to getting his thoughts, not only on what he saw at Penn State, but also that big game coming up against Iowa. And also, Grant has a very good interview. And I say a very good interview because this is a guy we wanted to talk to all year.
Well, yeah, he's been one of your favorites for sure.
I'm a huge Javin Wright fan. I know you got to talk to him. I didn't. I just sat back and I fanboyed it, but we will play that interview. Grant and Javin Wright. Obviously, this is a very big week. Not his only senior day, though. He's had a couple before too. But we'll hear about Javin Wright. We've got mailbag questions that we will get to. Of course, we'll give our score predictions of Nebraska, Iowa, and a couple other big games going on in college football here in that rivalry week, the last week of college football of the regular season before we get into conference championship play. But as always, we encourage you to engage with the show, whether it comes to the mailbag or just check it out. Maybe this is your first time checking out the Husker Huddle podcast. Well, we want to thank you, but there's always ways you can do so as well.
Yeah, go ahead and leave a comment down below if you like our work. Give us a like on this YouTube page and subscribe so you don't miss any of our content here to Performance Podcasts. And if you are listening to us on Spotify or Apple, please give us a rate and a review if you can. It'll help us out. Certainly if it's a positive one, which we hope they all are.
Yeah.
So also you can email us at our mailbag email, which is huskerhuddle@myboomerradio.com. huskerhuddle@myboomerradio.com.
Let's get to our sound of the week, which you know as the Omaha Steaks Prime Cuts. Omaha Steaks, your go-to for game day. From sizzling steaks to all of your tailgate favorites, they've got you covered. Omaha Steaks, proud partner of Nebraska Athletics. Here's this week's Omaha Steaks Prime Cuts.
I told the guys when we get on the plane thinking about next Friday. And if you're not all in, get on bus 6 and go sit in the back of the plane. If you're all in, go back to your seat and move forward, and I'll put this L on my chest. So this game coming up this Friday means the world to us. It means the world to me. And so last week was disappointing, but it is what it is.
It's a path of ups and downs and valleys and mountains, and I think just at the end of the day, like, this is probably one of the best paths that I could have been on for continuing to build my life after football. And after college especially. I've gotten the opportunity to work with I don't know how many coaches and had all these great teammates, and just continuing to plug through the adversity that hits when something doesn't go your way at this level. It's tough, and that is something that I really do pride myself on, is like I don't view myself as someone who's going to run away from a challenge or run away from a fight. As I head off into whatever God has next for me, I'm going to face it head on, and I'm going to do everything I can to succeed.
What feels different?
Just the buzz around it. Just the buzz around it. I can't explain, I can't explain what it is, but it just means more. That these rival games, and like I said, I've only been in 3 of them. But those just, had that feeling last year that I'd had in years past. And, it's just, there's not a whole lot of those rival games that exist anymore. A lot of them have kind of gone away. The Shoot Bedlam's one that's went away. The Backyard Brawl is one that went away. And so the ones that are out there, I know you gotta kind of relish the opportunity to be able to play those games. So it's
I think they kicked our ass. Obviously, that's the obvious answer. They had a plan to come in and run the football. They were a big physical, very big and very physical offensive line that played very well together. They were a motivated team. Not to say they weren't in the past, but you can clearly see the different level of energy and execution. Their backs are two very good backs. We had a plan. We knew they were going to run the ball. We had multiple blitzes, multiple fronts. We played 3 down fronts, 4 down fronts, 5 down fronts. We blitzed, we played base, we played single high man, single high zone, and they had an answer for everything. So kind of chalk it up to it is what it is. It wasn't our best day at the office, and we quickly have moved on to Iowa, but there's obviously still a lot of stuff to learn from it.
I've been through this 3 times, so I'm a little less emotional and more focused on the game than most, just because I thought it was the end every single year. So it's still emotional. It's still going to be my last time here. It's still hard, but focusing on the game is probably the most important thing for me right now.
Our Prime Cuts every week brought to you by Omaha Steaks, your go-to for game day, from sizzling steaks to all of your tailgate favorites. They've got you covered. Omaha Steaks, proud partner of Nebraska Athletics. I want to start with this one, Grant, because this goes back years for me personally.
Okay.
Of Nebraska fans always wanting to see the Nebraska-Wisconsin matchup when that was a regular thing, to be the rivalry, the new look Big Ten rivalry. Although I always thought it made sense.
Red on red.
Yeah, you could watch a game from afar, a Wisconsin game, and be like, oh, is that Nebraska playing? Because their uniforms looked similar, all that stuff. But it always made sense to me on why Iowa would be that natural rivalry. Obviously, proximity and all of that. But I go even deeper to the ire that each fan base has for one another. The trash talking that would always come from the Iowa side when they started getting Nebraska. And then this whole, we're going to pretend like we don't care about Iowa, even though when that trash talking, that needling from the Iowa side would clearly get under Nebraska fans' skin as well. And there always, for some reason, in my opinion, that I just never understood, but there'd always be that resistance more on the Nebraska side of, no, they're not worthy of a rivalry with us. We had Oklahoma. Well, we don't have Oklahoma. We haven't had Oklahoma for a very long time. We had Colorado. Well, we don't have Colorado. Haven't had Colorado for a long time as far as consistent games. This game is played every Friday. Black Friday, that is. Every Friday.
Oh, no.
That'd be a lot. Every Black Friday of every
I
season.
think people would suffer from burnout.
Obviously, Iowa has their rivalry with Iowa State, and even to some extent Minnesota. Nebraska's had their rivalries with Oklahoma and Colorado. But I've never understood the resistance of letting this thing be a rivalry. And I think part of that was the coaches that were a part of this never really gave it that type of attention, never really said anything. And I'm not saying you have to all of a sudden step up your trash talking game if you're a head coach or anything that could be bulletin board material. But I thought it was really refreshing to hear Dana Holgorsen say, oh, yeah, this is different. I felt it last year. And remember, Dana Holgorsen kind of coming in new this time last year to this game, and him making mention of how it felt last year and how it feels this year, I thought was refreshing, because whether people want to admit it or not, this is Nebraska's rivalry.
No, it definitely is. And I think this is where we could get a little bit into the generational gap here. But this is the only serious rivalry that I've really grown up with. Mm-hmm. Like, I was born in 2001.
You're so
I missed really a lot of the heyday of the Oklahoma and Texas rivalries. Yes, there's the Big 12 championship game and the 3 seconds. There's that, or 1 second rather. But for me, this has really been, for a large percentage of my life, the rivalry for Nebraska. That, and for Nebraska basketball and baseball, Creighton. But this is really what it's all about, and I'm fascinated to see how it plays out this week. Iowa's certainly had the upper hand over the last decade. I don't subscribe to this idea that, well, for it to be a rivalry, there needs to be an equal amount of winning between the two teams. Yeah. That is just something that the team that's won more recently says to the team that's lost more recently to bother them.
Talk. Absolutely.
Iowa fans on Twitter, I've met a lot of really, really great Iowa fans. Great people. Iowa fans on Twitter are perhaps the most reprehensible and disgusting fan base that exists. And USC fans have
now see, that's trash talk right there. I like it.
But no, I mean, look, if you I can remember an account that made fun of Brooke Behringer, like it just some of the most insane, vile things.
There was one tweet that was trying to accuse Scott Frost of not doing the wave in Iowa City when Nebraska clearly did, and they were trying to start something which clearly wasn't a thing at all.
And then you go back to last year with, Nebraska didn't do itself any favors, not shaking hands and then losing the game.
But those are actions to me that you
that's
do
not
for
a good
rival.
thing. That's not a good,
You're right.
But
you're right.
I agreed with that. That's where I came down a year ago. It's like, that's part of being a rivalry. These teams don't like each other.
Yeah, you chest up a bit.
And Nebraska deserved to deal with the consequences of not doing that and then doing that and not being able to back it up. But then you have the weird stuff last year about preventing the prayer circle at midfield, getting pissed off about Matt Rule walking around the stadium and trying to make more out of something than there actually was. So, this game is always one that's circled on the calendar for everybody involved. It's always fun for everybody involved, I think, to some extent. Even if you lose, it's still a game that gets the juices going. So I'm looking forward to it, as I'm sure both teams are.
Both fan bases relish in other teams' misery leading up to this game. And then, of course, if you get the other one, then that fan base has that ability to talk that trash, which they do. Even Nebraska in 2022, when they got Iowa in Iowa City, they relished in that. So again, to me, those are all of the ingredients you need for a very healthy rivalry. The game itself is going to be an interesting one, and we'll get to our predictions a little bit later on. But when we look at what Nebraska was up against, and as you kind of heard, and we listened to this on Tuesday, the coordinators, everyone is quick to turn that page from Penn State, which I understand that. And for two reasons. One, it was a woodshed beating. There's not much belaboring of that point that you can have.
For Nebraska, it's a very, very good thing that this is a short week to some extent.
And that's the other reason they're moving on from this, because it's a short week. You have to do it. It's not just coach speak. But I guarantee on that plane ride home, a lot of what happened at Penn State was getting at these guys. So, as we've seen this year with this team a lot, they're going to get an opportunity to do something that they failed in the first opportunity. We talked about some top 25 opportunities with Michigan and USC. They almost pulled it off against USC.
Well, it's Pat Narduzzi with Pitt and Notre Dame. He said, "I don't really care how bad Notre Dame beats us, as long as we turn around the next week and are able to find a way to beat Georgia Tech." That's where I think a lot of Nebraska fans probably aren't right now. I think they're still pretty frustrated after that loss to Penn State. But on the other side of it, if Nebraska comes out the victor, I think a lot of the frustrations with Penn State will go away.
I think that other element where Nebraska gets another do-over, as some of the players have talked about throughout the year when they've had those opportunities. I know Dylan talked about that, getting ready to play USC, is Nebraska, when they had that quick turnaround to play Minnesota on that Friday night. They lost to Minnesota, and a lot of people were pointing at that Minnesota game and saying, well, a lot of that could have to do with the quick turnaround. And Minnesota, kind of similar like Iowa, a little bit more of a physical team, good on the line of scrimmage anyway. So if you feel like Nebraska maybe lost that game and it was a weird game, and Nebraska really got manhandled by a Minnesota team that's okay this year, because of the quick turnaround, well, here you go. You get another opportunity to show that you're better in a quick turnaround than you were earlier in the season. But the narrative of this game, other than the history where Iowa has won 9 of 10 and Nebraska has not beaten Iowa at Memorial Stadium since 2011, is that physicality that was on display with what Penn State showed, and that Iowa is going to show as well.
And this game comes down to maybe 2 plays. I mean, it's going to come down to 2 to 3 plays, no matter what happens. It's going to be close in the fourth quarter. It's just the way it's played out. I mean, and the 46-point win that Iowa had over Nebraska back in 2017, like that has not been the tail of the tape from 2018 on. And it's crazy. I was looking through Iowa's game notes this week and mentioned this stat to you, but Iowa has had 9 game-winning field goals in the final 30 seconds of the fourth quarter since the 2015 season. 4 of those 9 are against Nebraska.
Yeah.
Which... And you went on to comment, that it felt like
all 9 of them
could
were.
have been all 9.
Yeah. I mean, and this is what Iowa has done. The coaches were talking about this on Tuesday as well, but Iowa has made it their program MO, their identity, to be comfortable in an uncomfortable situation. And I think if Nebraska wants to have success, whether you're winning the game and trying to keep Iowa at bay, or you're trying to make a ferocious comeback or whatever it is, that you somehow find that pressure point with Iowa. Obviously, you can make Iowa uncomfortable, being uncomfortable. But what part of the game, whether it's the third quarter, fourth quarter, doing certain things that
you're going to make them uncomfortable one quarter, you prefer it's the fourth.
Absolutely. but what are you doing to make Iowa uncomfortable, with the exception of just putting up ungodly amount of points? I mean, obviously that's the answer right there. But if you can find that pressure point that all of a sudden Iowa is truly feeling uncomfortable and they get sort of off schedule and they get out of that comfort zone. That's where I talk saying comfort and uncomfortable a lot, because I think that's how Nebraska has been in this series. And I think Iowa, even when they were losing 10-0, and it felt like it could have been a lot more last year, they just never looked the part of a frustrated team.
It got to 10, but it never stretched to a 3-possession lead or a 2-possession. So
they stayed within reach.
And that's how this game will be too. If Nebraska gets up 7 points, 8 points, even if it's a 2-possession lead for Nebraska, but it's only 10 heading into the fourth quarter, nobody is going to be relaxing in Memorial Stadium. And maybe the only person maybe that could feel relaxed is perhaps the Hawkeye sideline.
Yeah, and there's interesting things with this game. I think we can talk about the players. I think Mark Gronowski is an interesting element in what Iowa wants to do. Kamari Moulton is a more than capable running back, but he's not Singleton. He's not Allen. He's not what Nebraska saw last week. But you also had a quarterback that wasn't mobile for Penn State last week. You will have one. Gronowski, that's how he wants to beat you, and then they want to hit you with play action. But I also think the coordinating matchups are interesting. Holgorsen versus Phil Parker. And then the special teams matchup between LeVar Woods and Mike Eckler. There's a lot of intriguing elements that I think are going to be major factors in this game, especially when you do have that quick turnaround of what these teams are good at doing, what they feel confident that they can do.
Yeah, the other thing that's fascinating about this game is, and the other part that maybe grinds Nebraska fans' gears about Iowa, is there's a certain level of similarity between what the Hawkeyes do and Nebraska's success of old. And let me explain. We heard Dana Holgorsen talk about it this week. They've been doing the same thing for 25 years.
Yeah.
They've been winning the same ugly way for 25 years, and they sustain that for a quarter century. They're doing the same things on defense that they did 25 years ago. They're running the same offensive run gap schemes that they were running 25 years ago. And Nebraska knows what's coming, and every opponent that Iowa plays knows what's coming. And at a minimum of about 8 times a season, the opposition can't stop it.
Yep.
And so I think it's not the same as the 90s Huskers, but there's a certain level of that familiarity of you know what they're going to do.
But I dare you to stop it.
To stop it.
Absolutely.
And I think especially the way that Iowa's got the better of Nebraska doing those things, when the coaches have said the same things for the last 10 years about, well, we know what they're going to do, and then you get to the other side of the game and, they lost by 3 again.
Yeah.
Or they lost, they had a 15-point lead, 14-point lead in the first half, couldn't sustain it, So I think that's where some of that comes from.
We're going to talk more about this matchup with Mike Schaefer here in just a moment, but we want to tell you about our friends at Omaha Steaks, because this is the perfect time to go to omahasteaks.com, and we're going to tell you how you can save money, but it is the holiday season. What better way than to tell the people that you work with, your loved ones, or maybe just your neighbors that, hey, I appreciate you this year. I'm going to hook you up with a box of Omaha Steaks, and there's so many different varieties of that. It's all backed by a money-back guarantee, because this is some of the best you're going to have when it comes to all meats, not just the premium cut steaks, the USDA certified tender steaks, but also chicken breasts. We talk about tailgate items as well. My wife, who's not a fan of hot dogs, The Franks, she loves them. I love them. Our son loves them, but he loves everything. Even some dessert, maybe the apple
I was
torts.
going to say, he loves everything.
The smash burgers,
Green
it's
things.
it's all a winner, and you can get all of these in one of those delicious Omaha Steaks gift boxes.
Folks, right now, Omaha Steaks has a 50% off sale going on site-wide. It is the Sizzle All the Way sale, and we got a great chance for you to knock off a little bit more on top of that. For $35 off, use promo code HUDDLE at checkout. That's HUDDLE at checkout. Knock $35 additional dollars off your order. Terms apply, and you can see the site for details.
Short week, Nebraska, Iowa. We got the perfect guest to talk about not only this game, but really the best things to do when it comes to taking down your Thanksgiving meal as well, because I'm a fan of food. Grant's a fan of food.
Sure.
Our next guest, Mike Schaefer, also has thoughts when it comes to Thanksgiving and I would say the power list of what needs to be at your table. Mike Schaefer, happy Thanksgiving. How are you?
I'm good. I've got one Thanksgiving in already. I hosted my family on Sunday, which was an enjoyable experience. And then when everyone leaves, you just kind of enjoy that nice quiet, that first quiet when all the people, the guests, and everyone leave your house and your kid goes down, and it's just you get to just hear nothing. It's amazing as a dad how important hearing nothing is sometimes.
Are you gonna watch? Because I've asked Jenny if we could watch Trains, Planes, and Automobiles. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles before Thanksgiving. Is that part of? Because that's really the only Thanksgiving movie that exists out there.
I haven't thought about Thanksgiving movies. I'm sure there's other ones out there. I hadn't watched that movie until COVID. That was
really?
I wouldn't say a COVID discovery because I knew of it, but it was just one of those that I had never watched. And then there was some point where I just refused to watch movies that were on cable if I had never watched them before, because I want the full experience. And then it popped up on Prime at some point during COVID, and I ended up watching it. And, it's going to be shocking to hear this, but John Candy is just incredible.
The GOAT. Yes, he absolutely is the GOAT.
What's the one dish, the one Thanksgiving staple you'd leave on the cutting room floor if you could?
Yeah, I pretty much like all the sides of Thanksgiving. The funny thing is, turkey to me is the equivalent of a Brock Purdy in the 49ers offense. It's there. It has some value, but it's not nearly as valuable as everything else that's going to be on the table. And then the head cook has to put everything together like Kyle Shanahan, but he knows the turkey isn't anything special. But if he surrounds it with great mashed potatoes and with terrific mac and cheese and with, we do sweet potatoes, yams, that kind of thing, the green bean casserole. I had a corn bake the other day that was just incredible. All of those just is what allows the turkey to kind of be part of this whole mix, like Brock Purdy. And sometimes the turkey gets overpaid and gets over-discussed, but ultimately at the end of the day, it's everything that surrounds him that allows the turkey to have this day, just like Brock Purdy in that offense.
Wonderful analogies.
10 out of 10.
Staying on that theme then, at the dinner table, what is the Christian McCaffrey of dishes that if we're going to compliment the Brock Purdy, a.k.a. the turkey?
My family hasn't done it in a while, but and some of it is because now there's just too many people who don't really care for cheese that are in the picture. But my mom used to do these cheesy potatoes that would have it was a hash brown cheesy potato. It was pretty much everything I would ever want. Couldn't possibly be healthy for you. The sour cream, the cream cheese, whatever else is in there, the cheese, the crispy hash brown, it's all mixed together. It's just phenomenal. And I haven't had that in a while. That would be something that I would really enjoy. Otherwise, is it almost borderline lame, and yet at the same time, really well done mashed potatoes are always fantastic.
You can never go wrong with that.
Maybe Christian McCaffrey is
20
just
points.
mashed potatoes. Just reliable, excellent. You're excited to see it. You're happy to have it at your table. You'd be a little bit upset if you didn't. You don't like seeing the other table get mashed potatoes, but you don't have them. that kind of thing.
Yeah. And during that entire analogy, no mention of the Vikings whatsoever.
Oof, thank God.
Any of those players. Like I thought maybe a Justin Jefferson.
We've kept everybody.
The Vikings are like 5-day Thanksgiving leftovers. Nobody wants to see them. Nobody wants to talk about them. You just don't even want to acknowledge it until next year. That's the Minnesota Vikings.
All right. I love it. That was maybe some of the best probably 4 minutes that we've ever had with you, Schaefer. But we do have this quick turnaround game with Nebraska and Iowa. We know nothing really has changed with the Kirk Ferentz identity in this Iowa football program. Hey, weird. They have a very lackluster offense, but they have a very, very good defense, and their special teams is usually there when they need it. But there's been a lot of hot reaction off of Nebraska losing to Penn State in the fashion that they did. And if we're to look at where this Nebraska team has excelled and where, unfortunately, they've had their shortcomings, you would think that the Friday matchup against Iowa is going to present another major, major challenge. When you watched everything play out in State College, how surprised were you with what you saw and inevitably what the score turned out to be?
Yeah, I didn't think that Nebraska would have as much of a difficult time, and I know this sounds insane because it's been the one thing that's been consistent this year. I thought they'd do a little bit better on the edges of the field against the run. I think as we've gotten deeper into this season, Nebraska's been exposed more and more, and where the middle of its defense just isn't good enough. I mean, the linebacker play hasn't been good enough. The defensive line has to be better, of course, too. And then on the back end, some of those big, long runs early in the year were from some busts on run fits. But I just don't know that Nebraska's athletes at the second level this year have been good enough at times for them when you take on some of these better running teams that can stretch it to the outside of the field, that can bounce it, and I still think there's a world where Vincent Schaefer is a terrific player for you, but it just feels like from what we saw early in the year, he's maybe a little slowed by injury, maybe a little banged up. You're deeper into the season. I just thought guys would have looked a little fresher coming off of a bye week. And, I'm not shocked that Nebraska struggled against a team that if you would have told people this score before the year, I think people would have been like, okay, that's possible. You're going on the road. You're playing one of the best teams in the country. They don't have Drew Aller anymore, and they don't have James Franklin, but there's still enough talent on that Penn State team that they figure out how they want to play you. They can definitely put you in the dirt, and that's what they did to Nebraska. And so offensively, their issues, I think, are going to be known when you have a quarterback playing on a road environment like that with a good defensive team. I'm not particularly shocked that the game played out this way. I thought Nebraska would respond better or play better coming out of the bye than they have, but that's kind of been an issue for them, at other times. So I hate just sort of saying I'd see that result, but it doesn't really change how I feel heading into this game against Iowa. I mean, we've seen many varieties of Nebraska and Iowa, and it almost always comes down to the same thing. Will Nebraska stop beating itself, and does Iowa get an opportunity to kick a field goal with 4 seconds left at the end of the game? So if the first is yes, Nebraska stopped beating itself, then maybe the second is no. But if the answer to the first one is no, then the second one is almost undoubtedly yes. 3-point win for Iowa as time expires.
Mike, can you kind of put into perspective what's at stake in this game? I mean, it's one game, but 7-5 at the end of this thing feels a lot different than 8-4 would.
Yeah, I mean, this is the razor's edge of all the people that, like myself, I really wanted to go 7-5, but then I kind of felt like, the schedule's light enough that 8-4 is a possibility. This is one of those toss-up games. Nebraska's had a few of them this year where they, you take care of business against Michigan, you get a win. You're right there at 8 wins now, or if nothing had happened to Dylan Raiola, maybe you hold on to that USC game, you're at 8 wins right now. I mean, but this is what the difference is. And I think for a lot of people, it's going to be tough to look at this season as a success. If you end up at 7-5, you lose again to Iowa, you got blown out by Penn State, you got blown out by Minnesota, you didn't get the wins against USC or Michigan at home when you were in position to do so, leading in one and tied at halftime in the other. And so I think for some people, it's just as simple as getting a win against Iowa, finishing 8-4, showing a 2-win progress from the year before would feel substantially different than 7-5, while acknowledging this is probably the lightest Big Ten schedule you're going to have for a long time. It has been leading into it, and it's hard to imagine another Big Ten schedule where you don't really play any of the top teams. And every road game they had was against a team that was struggling or is frankly a 500 team at best. So this was not a difficult schedule year. That doesn't mean that there weren't challenges within it, but Nebraska doesn't want to be looking back at the end of this year thinking, what if? I mean, you had that enough last year at 6-6. I think 7-5 would feel that even to a greater degree.
Talking with Mike Schaefer here on the Husker Huddle podcast, getting ready for Nebraska, Iowa Black Friday showdown in Lincoln. So, Schaefer, one of the matchups that maybe people will get into a lot throughout the week, maybe not so much because it does involve coordinators. But with the short week, Dana Holgorsen with a young quarterback, but a quarterback that can use his legs as well, against, I think, one of the best defensive coordinators in college football, if not definitely in the Big Ten, and Phil Parker. And when you look at the identity of that Iowa defense, nothing has really changed. Weird. They have a good linebacking core. They have a good D-line core, and they've got guys in the back end of that defense that can make plays. What can Dana Holgorsen do? Or maybe the better question is, what is your expectation with some of the limitations that the Nebraska offense has, what they can do against this stout defense, especially with what we've seen some teams have success with Iowa, mainly USC and Michigan State even for a little bit last weekend. What's your expectation level with Dana Holgorsen, this offense, and the kind of game plan that they can put up against this tough defense?
These are probably famous last words, but I don't look at this as an Iowa team that's nearly as good as the ones that have come previously. I don't think the defense is nearly as good. I mean, earlier in the year, Ethan Kaliak-Manis was thrown all over him. I mean, this is not the sort of defenses Nebraska's gone toe-to-toe with in the past. It doesn't mean that they can't make plays. They're still opportunistic. They're still disciplined. But they're not as threatening up front. They don't have the great pass rush that they've had in the past. I don't know that they're just going to win against Nebraska's offensive line for as much as that group has struggled. I think Nebraska matches up okay with them. And so I think Nebraska's offense has to be, how do we pick our spots? I mean, when we have a chance to get points, we got to grab them in a game like this. I know Matt Rule has wanted to be aggressive, but I think if you get in another situation where you've got a 4th and short, you really have to consider, hey, you haven't been good at this all year. Like, your offensive line hasn't won in those situations all year. You've had a couple games that have come down to where you would have had some points if you just take them. It wouldn't be the worst thing for Nebraska to do that against Iowa in a game where I think points are going to be at a premium yet again. And so, you grab those. I think the biggest thing is you want to keep TJ Lateef from making unforced errors. If the play's not there, get the ball away, take a sack if you have to take the sack, throw it at somebody's feet if the screen play is covered up. I mean, just be smart about it. And so I think they have to know going into this, it's a battle. If you can get to 20 points, that's great. I understand Iowa's offense has played better this year than it has previously. That's an incredibly low bar, and I don't think we need to pretend like they deserve a ton of credit for getting games into the 20 points. Hooray for you. This is college football. You start with the ball now at the 25. This isn't Mark Gronowski has been good. They still don't have receivers that should threaten you. Their tight end shouldn't be running wide open like he was against Oregon at the end of that game. So, if Nebraska does their job defensively, and if they can just keep that Iowa running game from just pounding them, that's going to be the hard thing. But if you at least make them earn it, you're going to keep this game in the teens, and Nebraska's going to have some opportunities to put up points. I think you got to trust that your kicker can make the kicks this year. The snaps have been good. You grab the points when you can, and you live to fight another day. And it's going to be a big Emmett Johnson game. I wouldn't be shocked if we're talking about a 35-touch kind of game for him, for Nebraska to have a great opportunity in this. And TJ Lateef's got to play smart. I think Nebraska playing at home opens this thing up in a way that, if they were on the road, I would feel a lot worse about it. Nebraska at home on Friday, I think they're going to be right in this game. I don't know for sure that they're going to win, but I think they're going to be right in this game.
Is this sort of the ultimate test or final standard? As much praise as we've heaped on Mike Eckler, deservedly so, for his special teams unit this year, but if he can win head-to-head, as it were, with this Iowa special teams unit that has Cade Weigand and Stevens, who has been a thorn in Nebraska's side throughout his entire collegiate career. If Mike Eckler's unit can win head-to-head against this Iowa special teams is that sort of the ultimate test for his group this year?
Yeah, it could be. I just think it's going to be a continuation of what has been the best part of Nebraska football this year. And that's how Mike Eckler has flipped this thing from where it was a massive detriment to a major strength. And nothing about the result of this game has to change that. But if Nebraska has answers for Iowa's punt return, if Nebraska is able to keep them from, just dominating in a certain way, if they can find an answer in the film for how to get a punt block or to get a field goal blocked or to flip a play for themselves. I mean, they had another nice return set up again on Saturday against Penn State. I mean, they find ways to have success in the margins, and it's not always going to be a touchdown. But if you're giving TJ Lateef and Nebraska's offense a short field against Iowa, that means you need less yards to get into field goal range, and that means you have a better chance of potentially putting some points on the board. And so I look at this team and I look at that special teams unit as just continue to do what you're doing, and you're going to give Nebraska a great opportunity. And if it's a stalemate on special teams against Iowa, that'll be the first time in years that we could say that statement.
I want to go back to something that you had said earlier in this exchange about the game, and that is if Nebraska can avoid that one critical mistake to where it sets up Iowa to win the game in the final seconds. With everything, and I know this one for a lot of fans watching or listening to this would have a tough time saying yes after what happened against Penn State. But I'll ask you, Schaefer, is there enough trust in the body of work that Nebraska's put out in 2025 that we can trust this team can avoid that mistake or that moment that lets either Iowa back into the game or allows Iowa to put the finishing blow on this one?
I think for me, the answer is yes, but I can understand why for the fan base at large the answer is no, because they anytime you want to feel good about things, they have a Minnesota game, they have a Penn State game, They have moments where you're up against USC in the best home game environment that you've had in years, and you're not able to finish that out against a USC team. That's fine, but they're not that great. And you're up 14-6 with the ball, and your offensive coordinator can't help but touch the hot stove and has to pass, and suddenly you're fumbling, your quarterback is gone, and the whole game has changed. So it's hard to just sit here and say that you can trust that they're not going to get in their own way. But let's go back and revisit what happened in last year's game for Nebraska. It required a literal superhuman play and just a botch job from Nebraska's defense for Caleb Johnson to score that touchdown. Mm-hmm. It required some horrific snaps from a long snapper no longer in the program that you weren't able to make field goals or even attempt them on Iowa's side of the field throughout much of that game. It required a muffed punt, like things that we haven't seen much of this year. The Caleb Johnson play, maybe. Everything else we haven't. And that's not to say that Iowa is going to play as poorly as they did, and they had a backup quarterback, and Ty Robinson was having a massive game, and all of those things are going to be different. But we haven't seen Nebraska be as bad from a self-inflicted standpoint as we've seen them just sort of not show up like they did against Minnesota or not play the game that they needed to play against Penn State. And it's going to be a little bit different with TJ Lateef, absolutely. But I just believe that there's enough culture building and belief in that place over there in Memorial Stadium and inside the walls of their new facility that they think they can hang with Iowa, and they owe them. And I think there's an extra motivation to it. I think being at home will help them out in that regard. And they're not the boogeyman. Like, it's the Scooby-Doo thing. Like, you're going to take the mask off of Iowa football someday, and it's just going to be just another guy, just like you, that you've let turn into this thing over years where it doesn't have to be. Or, frankly, you take the mask off and it's a mirror and you're staring at yourself, and the whole reason Iowa's won all these games is Nebraska football couldn't get out of its own way. Yeah. But when it happens, you're just going to be sitting there and you're like, man, it really shouldn't have taken this long for Nebraska to put together a more complete game against this program.
Before I let you go, Schaefer, toss a score prediction our way. What do you think happens on Friday?
Yeah, it's early, though it is a short week, so I guess we're one day closer. I think you have to stay within a 3-point margin. So if you're the type of person that gambles a little bit, the spread would be favorable in that regard. It feels like a 17-14, 16-13, that kind of thing. So we'll make it weird. We're going to say no touchdowns for either side. 9 field goals scored. Nebraska wins 15-12.
Oh, heck yeah.
That's kind of that's sort of a Bruns type prediction right there too.
Yeah, well,
I
got to give the shout out to those guys as well. So,
Mike, always appreciate having you on. And we can say this too, coming up on December 16th, you're going to be joining us out there at Cross Train for another Huskers Live on Tap. Can't wait to have you out there with us over at Cross Train to talk some football, obviously some volleyball, basketball, the whole gamut of things. So can't wait to see you out there. Want to obviously wish you and your family a very happy Thanksgiving. Appreciate you spending time with us on this short week.
hey, thanks for having me on, guys. Have a good one yourself.
Good stuff as always from Mike Schaefer joining us here on the Husker Huddle podcast.
Some witty Thanksgiving-related banter.
Yeah, I think if we had time, I think we could do a power rankings list on
We don't,
what has
thankfully.
to be at the table for your Thanksgiving.
Maybe some cross-train.
I like that. I will be honest with you here because I don't like to not be honest with
Usually you lie.
I lie through my teeth all the time on the show. But I will promise there will at least be 2 different types of cross-train beers at the Handley
What a great
Thanksgiving.
guarantee.
Well, we're hosting. And so my brother, Corey, is also a huge fan of craft beer, especially cross-train. He'll usually bring his own assortment and variety of cross-train. I'll have some as well. So, yeah, should be a good little Thanksgiving. Who needs turkey at all? But if you're not invited to
drink your Thanksgiving dinner with cross-train.
well, yeah, you could do that.
Responsibly. Thank you.
Responsibly. If you're getting ready to head out to the Black Friday contest as well, of course, you get yourself a Cornhusker Crusher, which is the official craft beer of the Nebraska football team. But we also got a great event coming up in December, on December 16th, our next Huskers Live on Tap.
Yay.
Grant's going to be there. I'll
be
be
fun.
there. Mike Schaefer.
Volleyball.
Michael Bruntz, Husker 24/7.
Have
Might
we
have a special
secured-
volleyball
I was
guest.
gonna say, have we secured that
Not
guest
100% yet because travel is still a little bit up in the air, but we do have
It's a
one.
drive to Kansas City.
Well, hey, I can't control people's travel and what
I'll have
time
to
they need
talk
to
to
be there, but we do have a guest, special volleyball guest. Hopefully that will be there with us as well to talk some Husker volleyball again. That is Tuesday, December 16th. Mark your calendar as we will be at Cross Train in La Vista for our next Huskers Live on Tap, 5 to 7.
Yay.
A lot of Husker talk and, of
Free
course,
giveaways, lots of
great
prizes.
beer.
Please come out because you win yourself something. There's a lot of stuff to be given away.
Yes, and also
Valuable things.
same
Steak
week,
samples,
the following day. What's that?
maybe some steak
Oh,
samples.
I bet. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. And then the following day, mark this on your calendar too. Cross Train has a great event going on. I've been to this thing a few times actually. There are 12 jams of Christmas.
Oh, fun.
It is awesome. It's basically beer made of different jams, and you're going to like it a lot. Different varieties.
Sounds good to me.
As well. So that'll be on Wednesday, the 17th at Cross Train. But we want to see you out there Tuesday, the 16th as well at Huskers Live on Tap at Cross Train. All right, let's get to our mailbag. Week 17. If you want to get your questions into the mailbag, be sure to do so. Husker Huddle at myboomerradio.com. PB from the O, as he always does, kicks us off. First question. Iowa is 2-4 this season in one-score games. Nebraska 4-2. With the point total currently hovering around 39.5, which is actually higher for
Sounds
an Iowa
about right.
game. Yeah.
I think 2 years ago it was 33.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And that also seemed
ended
high.
up being right, by the way.
It says, does a close game the whole way through favor Iowa or Nebraska more?
History would say Iowa. This season, I guess you could say Nebraska. I would question what Nebraska has one win. One of those close game wins is against a team that's over 500 in Cincinnati.
Yep.
Northwestern would be your second best one-score game win. Maryland, and then who's the third one? UCLA.
Yep.
So I think it helps that you're at home. I mean, Mike Schaefer, we were just talking to, brought that up. I think that's a good point. Look, I think you can feel pretty confident this is a field goal game. I mean, I don't think Iowa is necessarily good enough to really take it to Nebraska in the way that Penn State did, even though some of their strengths are the same, and they should theoretically be able to sort of exploit similar weaknesses. But I'll say it's a stalemate. I don't know. I mean, because you look at those losses, Iowa took. It was in Indiana. One of those losses is Indiana. That's a 5-point loss. Oregon, 2-point loss. USC on the road, 5-point loss. Those are all really, really good teams that I don't know if Nebraska would have played as tightly. I guess you could have USC, but
yeah. The thing about what happened with Nebraska in those one-score games too, for the most part, they were able to get out to a lead and then hold a team off Michigan
Sure.
State was an example of a team that just kind of came
Even though
firing
that
back,
ended up being
and
a
then they had
multi-possession game by the end.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's because closer you can count to a one-score game too.
Yeah, I think of that Michigan State game, and that's a good point, that wasn't a one-score game, but that was a game where Nebraska had an early lead, then they gave up that lead. They had to come from behind, and then they created a little distance there towards the end. So if there is a silver lining to this 2025 season for Nebraska, I think it is the ability to have that confidence that they can
put
either
that
hold
narrative-
a team off, or they can find enough there in the second half to
At least for a little
overcome
while.
a deficit.
You're guaranteed over 500 unless they lose this game in the bowl game by one score. So
here's another good one from PB from the O. He says, you are planning Thanksgiving with the Huskers?
tough
We are.
question.
Who are the 5 other people you are bringing to your table? 6 including you. So you got to come up with 5.
I've got
for
3.
your feast. For your feast. So this current
I've got 3, so you go and then I'll try to get my
Okay,
other 2.
well, and a lot of this comes from our Huskers All Access conversations that we've had a chance to really get to know some of these guys, and some of them are frequent visitors and guests on Husker Huddle. I'm going with the entire interior offensive line. My guys, Justin Evans, Henry Latufsky, and Rocco Spindler, they're fantastic. Good guys that we actually talked to off the air a little bit too, and they're fun to talk to. So I got to add 2 more in there. Riley Van Poppel. See, I'm going with the trenches
You're
here.
just going to stay defensive.
I am. I'm going to throw Riley Van Poppel in there. And here's another guy that we haven't talked to, but I would love to just sit down because I think he's going to bring the positivity to the table more than anything. Give me Javin Wright. Javin Wright is just a good dude,
Barrel of
and I
laughs.
really enjoy talking to that guy. Just listening to him, he's been through it with the injuries. He's got perspective, and he is one of the most glass half full guys that we've ever seen. You need that positivity at the dinner table.
So my first pick, similar situation, a guy who you're around him for any sort of period of time and you immediately feel better for being around him. That's Sierra Wright.
Yeah.
That's just a guy who, you don't really say he's not bubbly. I mean, that's not how I would describe him, but he's got a very positive personality.
That's fair.
He would have some great conversation. So he's on that list. Keona Davis is on that list for me, and might have to wheel out some extra portions, but
don't try to take his role or anything too.
Right,
because
exactly. He's
going to get
he
you
would
a TFL.
defend it very well.
Yeah, he would.
Archie Wilson. I don't know if do they do Thanksgiving in Australia?
I think Archie seems like he's up for whatever.
Yeah.
He's just up for a
that
good
would be
time.
a fun experience.
Yeah.
Like, hey, here's your first American Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Someone better ask him that this week. We'll see. So there's Archie. Emmett Johnson.
Yeah.
Emmett Johnson for sure.
Emmett
Similar category as
Emmett
Sierra.
would bring something too because he's such a polite guy.
Right. Okay. I'm glad you brought that up. I didn't want to make it all about manners, but I was going to say that guy, I mean, everybody's pretty polite with this year's team, but that guy is above and beyond.
If you got to worry about bad table etiquette and guys having their tables on the or their elbows on the table, it would not be Emmett
And
Johnson.
he would volunteer to help clean up afterwards. I mean,
he would insist.
That type of person. My last pick, similar category in both the servant leadership and or politeness zone, is Luke Lindenmeyer. Would be my last pick.
All right.
So another positive individual. There's a lot of positivity at that table.
I like it. Our last question, this one comes from Brandon. Brandon says, Nebraska has not won against Iowa at home since 2011. What has to happen for Nebraska to come away with the Heroes Trophy this week?
Oof. Well, that's dipping our toe a little bit into the prediction zone. But I will give you a spoiler, and we'll have our interview next. But I would say for me, it comes down to turnovers, and you touched on it there with Mike. I mean, it's not making that one critical mistake that lets Iowa back in.
Yep.
Because I feel pretty confident in saying that Nebraska is going to be in that position. I don't feel like I'm going out on a limb and saying that. Like the last 3 or 4 times Nebraska has played Iowa. In fact, I think you could probably say the last 5 times Nebraska has played Iowa, they have let the Hawkeyes back into the game and lost and fumbled the bag. So it's going to be, do you avoid that weird Keegan Johnson play? Do you avoid shooting yourself in the foot at the key moments? To this point, even though Nebraska lost by the margin they lost to Penn State, that 20-plus point margin, TJ Lateef has not made any critical back-breaking mistakes. Yeah. That has to continue. That trend must continue. Hopefully not at the expense of aggressive nature in terms of your play calling and your general style, but you're going to have to make a couple extra plays. And by the way, if Iowa does crawl its way back in, whether that's a big punt return or a kick return touchdown or a pick six or whatever, you're going to have to remain aggressive, I think. That's what killed Michigan State. Mm-hmm. They had fourth and manageable from near midfield, decided to punt the ball back, and Iowa drove down and had the game.
Yeah, playing not to lose is never a
you can't
formula
do
for
that.
Success.
And you can't cough the ball up in key spots. So those are my two big keys, and we'll expand further upon those when we get to predictions.
You and I talked about this on Husker Hindsight following the Penn State game that following Sunday.
Yeah.
I brought up the 2020 game, the Logan Smothers start for Nebraska, when the Huskers were leading and everything was looking great. Maybe that was in 2020, whenever the Logan Smothers start was. And you had that punt block for a touchdown.
Yeah.
Huskers still led in that game.
Or even 2 years ago. 2 years ago, you get the pick with 30 seconds left to set yourself up with a short field and a chance to drive, score, win the game. Chubba Purdy turns it over immediately after that, and Nebraska loses. You thought at that moment, everybody in that stadium thought the last time the Hawkeyes were in Lincoln that, oh my gosh, Nebraska finally made the play that Iowa makes against Nebraska year in and year out over and over and over again. Right. There's no way they could possibly give it away with 30 seconds to go. At the least, Nebraska's going to get a chance to go to overtime. If not, get the victory outright. And then
it seemed like it was set up for them. And the reason I bring up the Smothers thing too is not only did Nebraska still have the lead after that catastrophic special teams moment that Iowa had prepared for and identified something, but Nebraska, all of a sudden, they might as well have given up the lead on that moment, because that's when everything turned. Even the head coach afterwards said, that's when we knew we were in trouble. That's where the game turned. When your head coach is saying that and you still have the lead. And I bring that up because then I want to go back to 2 weeks ago out in L.A., where all of a sudden UCLA starts getting that momentum.
Sure.
They get a touchdown to draw within a score, and you're thinking, oh gosh, oh no, Nebraska's going to go 3 and out, give UCLA the ball right back and have a chance to possibly tie or win the game. Well, what did they do? They ran a great 4-minute offense. They didn't allow UCLA to get the football back. So there have been moments this season where I think Nebraska has shown growth. I bring that up because I think in this game, if you can get yourself in a similar situation to where, much like last year, you're, for the most part, in control of the game, you're keeping Iowa at bay, that if all of a sudden they put some pressure on you and you're thinking, uh-oh, here we go, can Nebraska have that answer where it's not panic-ridden, where you're not, oh, my God, what do we do? And I think a lot of that comes from the demeanor on the sideline from the head coach, but also to the play caller, all of that, where I think Nebraska has made significant improvements from that department. You got somehow, some way to put Iowa
on the back foot
and in that discomfort zone, as opposed to Nebraska getting out of their comfort zone.
Yep.
Iowa has always, even when they've trailed by a score, either in Lincoln or in Iowa City, they felt comfortable. You got to do something to make them uncomfortable, not the other way around. So that's how they win this game.
Well, folks, it's time for our final player interview segment of the regular season here on the Husker Huddle. Take a look. Alrighty, folks, welcome. It's Huskers All Access, brought to you by Access Bank, here for a reason. I'm Grant Hansen here with Nebraska linebacker Javin Wright, and you're another one of these seniors. And what has this program meant to you? You're the lone 7th-year senior on this team. You've spent a lot of time here. How has this place shaped you?
I matured here. I came here as a young kid. I mean, I have no words for how much this place has helped me, how much this place has helped me grow. I've grown into a man here, and I can't be more appreciative enough.
Apart from this game against Iowa on Friday and the bowl game to come as well, what are your maybe 1 or 2 top memories from your time here?
1 or 2 top memories. Just the transition, coaching changes, maybe winning the first Iowa game for me, winning Colorado, winning Wisconsin. There's so many memories in the past since I've been here for a long time. Like memories start flooding back right now, and I just can't do anything but smile at the memories that keep flashing before my eyes. So I have a lot, and I'm just super grateful.
Game last week against Penn State, you just had to deal with some tough stuff defending the run, and now you're facing another team this week that you know very well, runs the ball quite a bit as well. So what are keys for you defensively at that second level to be able to defend this Iowa run game?
Yeah, like every team, we just got to stop the run by physicality and knowing and doing our job. So, I mean, last week, I mean, things didn't go our way, obviously, but just getting back on the horse and figuring out what we need to fix this week, and then just going out and doing that is the key to winning this game.
As you look forward and beyond your time here and the time that you spent this year with some of the young pups on this team, like Donovan Jones and Cade Petchak and so many different guys who've contributed in big ways, what does the future hold for this Nebraska defense?
The future's bright. We have a bunch of young stars, even stars that you don't even know about, that will blossom in a couple of years, maybe even very, very soon. So I'm just can't wait for you guys to see. I can't wait for you guys to watch this program grow.
What do you look forward to the most about this game against Iowa and then the bowl trip to come after that?
Yeah, just progress with this team and being able to cherish my brothers throughout every day. I mean, my time here is limited, and I mean, I can't be more appreciative, but it's time we're getting sad. Like the seniors are getting a little bit emotional just because of their time is coming up, but just being able to just hug on the younger guys and even the ones that are closest to us, and just being thankful and just making more memories.
How do you manage that? I mean, you're pretty experienced at that at this point of going into a senior day, and you've got a lot of emotions at play, but you have a game to play as well and a game to win. So how do you manage those things?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because, like, it's your senior week, but we also have a rivalry week, so everything is matching up on this week. I'm a little different because I've had 3 senior days, so I'm a little less emotional because I've been through this a couple times. But just being focused on the game and keeping your focus at one thing at a time is the key to getting past this week and winning.
Well, folks, he's Javin Wright. This has been Huskers All Access, brought to you by Access Bank, here for a reason.
All right, here we go. Our final segment here on Husker Huddle, and getting ready for the short week and the holiday break. And again, before we get rolling, we want to wish everyone out there a very happy Thanksgiving. Yes.
Yay.
Enjoy it and do it excessively, as many do on Thanksgiving, because we got a lot of football beginning, Thursday, yes, but Friday for us. Whether you're a fan of college football, NFL, it all kind of comes together Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and, of course, NFL on Sunday.
Yeah,
but
great 3 days.
It is fantastic. You and I, we're going to be out there in Lincoln on Friday. We're going to tell you our score prediction for that one. But first, I want to get into some of those traditional matchups going on. And they do involve top 25 teams. I want to start in the great state of Texas.
Here we go.
And now 2 SEC teams that we do have going head-to-head. And really, Texas A&M in a tremendous spot, one of the best spots they have been in a very long time, not only to get into the college football playoff, but also to be a true contender to try to win the whole thing. Standing in the way, at least from a seeding standpoint as well, would be the Texas Longhorns. This one will be played in Austin. Texas coming in with that number 17 ranking. This game right now has the road team Aggies as a 2.5-point favorite, so a slight favorite over the road team, the Texas Longhorns. Over-under in this one is 51.5. We've seen a Jekyll and Hyde act from the Longhorns this year. Texas A&M and Mike Elko, I feel like, are bucking a lot of those trends that we've seen from Texas A&M teams of the past that have had good teams, good rankings, getting to this point of the season.
But just can't finish the job.
Exactly. I believe in this Texas A&M team, and I thought from day one, Mike Elko was an interesting and solid hire. And it's games like this, time of the year like this, the way they have that roster built, even with this game being in Austin, plenty on the line for both of these teams. But I just think Texas A&M, if it comes down to it, I'm going to use the same logic I used last week with Nebraska, Penn State. Rosters stacking up side to side. They're both playing solid football, who's going to be having the edge in this one? I still think the Aggies. I'm taking Texas A&M to win in a wild one by a score of 35-31.
I think this is a blowout. Not a complete, 30-point win for Texas A&M, but I have the Aggies winning by double digits in this game. Look, yes, the South Carolina game, not good by any stretch. You had your pseudo bye week last week in the 48-0 win over Samford. Come into it this week. You've got rid of those bad vibes from a couple of weeks ago. You go on the road against a rival, a chance to finish the season 12-0. Yes, you're pretty much into the college football playoff no matter what you do at this point. Texas, you need to obviously win this game to even be considered. But Texas is wilted against big teams this year. You look at Arch Manning's numbers, they're actually better or at least equal to Marcel Reed's. They're really, really similar. The thing is, Arch has done it, has sort of stat padded against the poor teams this year. I like Reed a lot. I mean, that this is a guy that is dynamic at the quarterback position. You know, I don't know if you really would have thought this back in week 1, predicting how things would be in the final week of the regular season, but Texas A&M has the better quarterback coming into this game, and it's not particularly close. I usually like to ride with that, even when a team like this is on the road. Texas A&M, they get the win in this game, 35-21.
Would not go well in Austin and for Steve Sarkisian if not only they lose but get blown out. So that would be a tough pill to swallow there for the Burnt Orange. The other major rivalry game in the Big Ten, too, as some would consider the greatest college football rivalry between Ohio State and Michigan. Michigan will be the host. They come in with an 18 ranking to Ohio State being the top dog in the country at number 1. This is a 9.5-point spread in favor of the road team, and over-under of 45.5 in this game. And Grant, I'll say this for Ohio State, and we live, you and I and a lot of folks that are taking this in, we live in a Big Ten bubble when it comes to quarterback play, and I think there's a lot of great storylines throughout the season of some quarterbacks. I think Mendoza has been outstanding for Indiana. I think there was a lot of eyeballs on Bryce Underwood, the other half of this matchup in this game. And, of course, we wanted to see what Dylan would do in year number 2. I know there was high hopes for Julian Sayin, and maybe it's just because he's been rock solid all season long, but I don't think we talk about him enough. Jeremiah Smith, this Ohio State team, this Ryan Day team, and how he's constructed this machine out there in Columbus, Ohio, how he's kept that rolling. And I think Ryan Day, with a little more of a chip on his shoulder, I think always serves this team well. But I just don't feel like we're saying enough good things and really superlatives for the type of play we've seen from Julian Sayin. And I just think when you look at a Bryce Underwood versus Julian Sayin, and I'll go back to your matchup with Texas and Texas A&M, if we're looking at a quarterback matchup, but a guy that I think is chomping at the bit to go into the big house and really put an exclamation point on what has been a fantastic debut of a season for this young quarterback. I think not only Ohio State goes in and rolls, because they've heard all about everything can be going great until you go in and play Michigan, and they can change those fortunes. We remember Michigan doing that last year at the Horseshoe on a year that Ohio State won a national championship. You don't think this game has been circled all the way after?
It's been circled for 5 years.
That victory parade, though, that was the one big blemish that, Ryan Day and that team feel really bad about. I think they go in. I think they're on a mission. I think they cover. I think they win this one by a score of 35-17.
It's no secret Michigan is going to be significantly outgunned in this game, but they have been. Pretty much since Harbaugh left. I mean, that's maybe the last time you could have thought that the numbers are even. And generally, I think Michigan has been outgunned from a talent standpoint heading into these games against Ohio State and this winning streak the Wolverines are on. This is a huge game for the Buckeyes, too. Look, they've been relatively untested this year. You got the win over Texas. That's certainly a feather in your cap. And you have a win over then number 17 Illinois. But the schedule's been somewhat weak this season relative to maybe some of the draws that you could have got in the Big Ten, like teams like Iowa did. But if Ohio State loses this game, they're not playing in the Big Ten championship game, which is crazy to think about an 11-0 team.
They've been in the driver's seat
But
entire
if they
way.
lose this game, Oregon goes in. And now if Oregon loses and to Washington, and then Ohio State loses to Michigan in this game, Michigan goes to the Big Ten championship game. So there's a pathway here for the Wolverines to be playing a week from this upcoming Saturday. I think that's a big motivator for Michigan. Ohio State's certainly not going to be lacking motivation in this game. It is on the road. I think it stays competitive. Probably for about the first half. As you drift into the third quarter, Ohio State starts to pull away, sort of similar to what we saw with the Penn State game at the Horseshoe earlier this season. Ohio State wins this one. We'll say it's not quite 10 points, but we'll say 31-24 Ohio State.
Okay, tighter game. So you think you got the other rivalry as a blowout. I don't. I have this one as a little bit more of a blowout. You don't. All right, I like it. All right, now for the Nebraska-Iowa game. Speaking of another rivalry game, the Heroes game. Look, we know the record right now. Nebraska has lost 9 of 10 against their cross-state rival. Last win at Memorial Stadium, 2011.
Unbelievable.
That's been a long time. A lot on the line for both of these teams. Most likely,
an overtime game, the 2011 game. They lost that overtime game.
Yes,
they? The last time it went to overtime in Lincoln under Pelini.
Yeah, you got to go that win before the 2022 win was an overtime win in Iowa City too.
Right.
So these games have traditionally been very, very close, with the exception of a couple. And you got to remember, most likely the winner of this thing is going to the ReliaQuest Bowl. All right, you're going to Tampa. Would love to be out there. Nebraska they're happy to be in a bowl, but would love to go to a warm weather bowl as opposed to New York. I don't even think that's on the.
I think it's Vegas. It could be Vegas.
Vegas or Tampa, I think, is what's at stake. But regardless, look, there's bad blood between these teams. We saw the handshake last year, or lack thereof. That motivated Iowa. Iowa has taken this game a lot more serious, in my opinion, than Nebraska, and the result has shown. I think last year you started to see some of that bad blood boil over a little bit to, folks, whether you like it or not, this is a rivalry game. And once Nebraska treats it that way too and embraces that, I think that's where it becomes even more fun. But having said all of that, this comes down to the matchup. There's a lot of external things, but this comes down to the matchup, in my opinion. You've got physical on physical. Yeah, different style of running than what you saw with Penn State. This is an outside zone attack when it comes to the running game that Iowa has done for many, many years, regardless of who the offensive coordinator is, and that's where they feel they can have a lot of success. This is an area that concerns me for Nebraska and being able to stop that. We're looking, though, again, at quarterback play. All right? You don't have two really high-end running backs like Penn State does. But what you do have is Kamari Moulton. Moulton is a more than capable running back, and Mark Gronowski, who can use his legs as well. So you've got to account for that as well when it comes to this. There's nothing new about this Iowa offense. They're not going to overwhelm you with passing the football. They're going to try to find some mismatches on play action, but most of their offense is going to come of what they do on the ground. Can Nebraska hold up to that? Those emotions on senior day, all of those things I think are a factor. But Grant, I look at what TJ Lateef is going to be doing against a defensive coordinator like Phil Parker, who usually schemes very well against young, inexperienced quarterbacks. This is going to be an Emmett Johnson type of game if TJ Lateef is also going to be able to experience success in this one. I love the game that Deshaun Singleton had against Penn State in that loss. He's going to have to be big in this game. I'm starting to think about all these ones, but the key matchup, in my opinion, is going to be coordinators, but not the ones we talked about. This is going to be LeVar Woods versus Mike Eckler. This is going to be a special teams thing. If offense is on both sides of it not getting a lot done, maybe there's a wrinkle in special teams one way or the other that could decide this game. But if I'm going strength on strength into this one, it pains me to say I have Iowa winning this game by a score of 14-10.
Okay, so we know this game's going to be close. We know it's going to be separated by about 3 points. Iowa currently a 4.5-point favorite. I would be on Nebraska on the underdog side of it right now. I don't have Nebraska winning this game either. And it's largely just because of the history. I mean, I think it's really hard to be able to pick Nebraska given the weaknesses that Nebraska has shown this year. Yes, they've limited their the ammo for the gun they've been shooting themselves with the foot with, given that compared to previous years. But I think there's just a lot here that Nebraska is going to struggle with. We talked about Moulton. He's averaged over 5 yards per carry in 5 of his last 6 games, or rather over 4 yards per carry in 5 of his last 6 games. He's only got the 2 rushing touchdowns on the year, and so those numbers don't look particularly alarming until you look at Mark Gronowski's numbers and how they use him in the red zone. He has a rushing touchdown in every single game this year except the Michigan State game last week.
More than half of his carries, by the way, have converted first downs for them as well.
So that's a different layer to this game compared to Penn State, right? Both these teams, Penn State and Iowa, like to run the ball, but they do it in different ways. Penn State, you have multiple really, really talented probably NFL running backs in the backfield. For Iowa, you've got a quarterback in Gronowski that's big, physical, likes to use his legs, and he can make the plays through the air late stages of the game when he needs to, even if he starts poorly, which he has done several times this year, as Iowa has done several times this year. So this is a game that I think Nebraska probably jumps out to an early lead in, whether that's 3-0 or 7-0, not saying 10. Maybe you get there. This is first team to 20 in my mind.
Yeah.
If you can get to 20, you'll win this game, and I think Iowa's going to be able to do it in this one. It's just tough to pick Nebraska given the things that are working against the Huskers right now and what we saw last week.
Kickoff temperature 32 degrees, by the way.
So
whatever that
means.
If
Nebraska wins this game, huge momentum boost into next year. I mean, that is going to be abundantly obvious. I just don't know if Nebraska has enough left in the tank to get it done on the defensive side of the ball. Can you stop the run? Can you keep Iowa in second and long? That'll be a huge, huge piece of this game. Offensively, can you avoid the back-breaking turnover, the play that lets Iowa back into the game, as we've discussed earlier in the show? To this point, and over the last 10 years, Nebraska hasn't been able to do that. And until they traditionally and continuously reverse that, it's going to be hard for me to pick the Huskers to win this one. Matt Rhule 0-2 against Iowa in his head coaching career, and I think it falls to 0-3. Hawkeyes win 20-17. Back-to-back weeks, they win by that margin.
I'd say defensive line obviously going to be huge in this game for Nebraska, but especially the edge players there too. With that outside
Turner Corcoran
zone.
In his third senior day, what does he have at right tackle?
And he had a great game last week.
Can he empty the tank at right tackle and get Nebraska a win over Iowa? That would be his second in his tenure here at Nebraska.
Yeah, he was one of the bright spots in that loss to Penn State for sure. All right, there you have it. We wish we had more confidence.
Unfortunately.
And I know we could say this. We'd be very happy to be proven wrong.
So happy.
Very happy to be proven wrong. Again, everyone, have a very happy Thanksgiving. We appreciate you checking us out, not only this week, but all throughout the season. Very, very much appreciate you checking out the Husker Huddle. But we still got more to come. We'll have one next week. We'll be talking about what happened with Iowa, and we'll be waiting around. We'll have to wait for another week after to figure out where Nebraska will be go bowling as we'll get ready for a conference championship weekend, which we look forward to that as well. For Grant Hansen, I am Nick Handley. Have a very happy Thanksgiving, and thank you for listening and watching the Husker Huddle Podcast.